Title: Screen of Shadows. In the small town of Glenwood, nestled between the craggy hills and heavy woods, Friday nights had a ritualistic appeal. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the last streaks of golden light faded into darkness, families would gather around their televisions. This particular Friday, 16-year-old Mia Harper was home alone, her parents caught up in some unyielding work. Instead of spending the evening with friends, she settled into her favorite armchair, snack in hand, and switched on the TV. The flickering screen came alive with the opening credits of Fright Night Classics, a dreadful anthology series known for turning childhood fears into live-action nightmares. That night's offering was a recently released episode titled The Horror Within. It was supposed to be a self-aware horror movie, where characters could step out of the screen, but Mia dismissed it as a gimmick. Little did she know that the episode, unlike any before it, would breach the barrier between fiction and reality. Halfway through the show, a thunderstorm erupted outside, the wind howling like a rabid beast. Mia snuggled deeper into her chair, the shadows dancing across her walls as the storm raged. Just then, the room darkened and the television flickered. The characters, cliched stereotypical horror figures, emerged from the screen, their twisted forms becoming real before her very eyes. At first, it was magical. There was Jason, the hulking figure with his signature mask and a sinister grin, lurking just behind the shadows. The witch, her long, stringy hair concealing a scowl meant for unsuspecting teenagers. And the vampire, dressed in an elegant black suit, with glistening fangs waiting to sink into soft flesh. They looked around with a deep longing as if life outside the screen held an irresistible allure. Mia's heart raced. She should be frightened, but an odd rush of adrenaline made her feel exhilarated. Yet, as the fantasy of their world collided with hers, something shifted. The character's initial fascination twisted into rage. The vampire, with its malicious stare, stepped forward, and the others quickly followed. "You think this is a game, girl?" he sneered, baring his fangs. "You took us out of our world." "I didn't mean to," Mia shouted, her voice cracking. "You're not supposed to be real." "Oh, but we are," Jason replied with a slow, menacing swagger, his voice grating against Mia's nerves. "And we're hungry for terror. The kind of terror you can't comprehend. You brought us here, and now, the hunt begins." A chill washed over her. The walls of her once safe home closed in. Scrambling from her chair, she dashed into the kitchen, praying to find refuge. But the characters followed, the sounds of their heavy footsteps echoing as they stalked her, savoring her fear. Mia rummaged through drawers, her fingers shaking until she found a butcher's knife. It was a feeble weapon against the living embodiments of terror, but she had to fight back. Steeling herself, she spun around, ready to defend herself when she stumbled upon the haunting sight of the witch, hovering just outside the kitchen entrance. Her gnarled claws extended, her eyes wild with malicious excitement. With a scream, Mia lunged at the witch, knife aiming for the silhouette of her heart. Instead of flesh, the blade met cold, hard air. The witch screeched, sending a shiver down Mia's spine as her form suddenly contorted, dissipating into a frigid mist that engulfed the kitchen. Panic surged within Mia, and she quickly realized the weapons of this world wouldn't work against them. Their forms could morph, dissolve, and emerge anew. In that moment, inspiration flickered in her mind. She recalled the show's essence, battling horror with wit. If they could come out of the screen, perhaps she could draw them back. Racing back to the living room, Mia remembered the episode's ending, where the characters were sent back into the screen by confronting their fears. "Listen," Mia shouted, her voice breaking through the storm outside. "You want terror? Look at yourselves. You're just characters, faceless shadows of fear." They hesitated, confusion knitting their twisted features. "You're nothing without your scripts." The vampire stepped closer, his fangs gleaming the only source of light in the dim room. "We are powerful, we will destroy you. But you're just a story. You can't exist without a viewer." Mia cried. She grabbed the remote and rewinded the episode, the flickering screen now showing a frantic montage of her shrieking self, the characters flailing about like actors in a rehearsal gone wrong. With each frame, the characters weakened, their forms flickering as if struggling against the narrative twist she was creating. Mia focused on the television, willing the characters back into their confined digital prison. "You're nothing without your story. Back to where you belong. With a final piercing scream, the vampire lunged at her, but in that moment, the screen flashed bright white, shadows dissolving into echoes of laughter and shrieks as they tore back into their realm, and the show cut to black. Mia fell to her knees, gasping for air as the television finally settled back into silence. The storm outside began to fade, and the familiar glow of her living room returned. She was alone once more, but this time, it was a comforting solitude. With trembling hands, she switched off the television and sank back into her chair. The world of horror was back where it belonged, but somewhere deep in her mind lingered the reminder. Reality is often a fragile boundary between the known and the unknowable. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was best to keep the screen on and fears contained.